we go. So, welcome today to the Digital Accomplice podcast. Today, we'd like to welcome our guest, Michele Dinsmore from Overit. Welcome, Michele.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, yeah, today we're just going to have a little conversation about some of your marketing successes and what you're up against right now. So, what I'd like to start out with is what would be a recent marketing success you've enjoyed?
I've enjoyed.
What's
Mhm. Yeah,
sorry, what's a recent content marketing success you've enjoyed?
content marketing. I think for us, we do actually quite a bit of video. So we lean into video, audio. So anything that is extremely well budgeted is always a factor, and gives us the free reins to conceptualize things, be able to distribute that content around in creative ways, but let our ideas really flourish. Funny enough, I would say one thing that the team worked on that was pretty cool was developing a character for a company and then being able to execute that character in actual 3D form, as well as develop other characters with storylines and apply them across social media, digital marketing, websites and stuff. And with that, we did ideate with Midjourney, which was also a fun component.
What would you say right now would be your biggest marketing challenge, and what are you as an organization doing about it?
Marketing challenge, I think, is just the pace of things. As you know, with AI, and the shift of things like Google and search engines. There's always so much to keep up on. And I feel like now it's moving at such a high pace. There was disruption. There was so many ways to have to flip a script because the script didn't work anymore. And I think now there's a lot of exciting things you can do, but it's like every day there's more to consume, learn, change, and that's a really big challenge.
Yeah, believe me, I know. It's like drinking out of a fire hose.
It really is.
So you touched a little bit on this earlier about how are you using video now, and maybe more importantly, how would you like to be?
Yeah, so I think now with video becoming more and more central to content, we've always, because we also have a recording studio called Overit Studios. We have a cyclical wall, we have a place to shoot, we have a full audio studio, and we were doing webinars and streaming before it got so mainstream with COVID. So we were doing a lot in video before, and I think now because of this rapid pace we're moving at, and because of the changes of everything, content is being reprioritized to be not just written word, but to be about video and audio more and more. And we were always on that train and early, I think, but now I see that that's becoming more central. So for us, I think it's one of the things that I actually was talking about this morning is something that I've been beating a drum with for a while. That distribution of content that you talk about as well, of how else can you extract and use a webinar or a product demo or any live stream, or take that to social media or other channels and mediums, and then bring it back into a central database so that you are tracking all those behaviors and being able to serve more personalized content and all of that futurism that is on the horizon with being able to control your own data. So again, a lot. That was a big mouthful. That's some of, I think, what we're looking at in the world of content. Does that make sense?
It sure does. It's funny how I keep hearing the same themes from anyone that I talk to. So this is stuff we're all dealing with, you know.
Yeah.
And on that point, yeah, we also talked about the AI thing. So how are you using AI right now, and what's working and what's not?
I think I'm an AI optimist. That's not everybody right now that I'm interacting with. Some are rather skeptical. And I do get it because they're not, as we were talking about technology, it's just a technology. It's doing what we tell it to, and it's extracting data from the past, essentially, a lot of data. So I think part of the challenge is getting everybody finding how it works for them and their workflows. Some of the ways we're using it, I think, are basic, from the summarizing and extracting of information, PDFs and things like that, and and transcripts. And I think those are all really common uses. Deeper uses are, developing specific GPTs for clients or client industries that are garden walled, to us, so that we can banter back and forth and start to extract more data. So those are some of the ways we're using it as far as industries and clients and GPTs. There are people using tools, other tools across the company that, for instance, I mentioned Midjourney. So even using Midjourney to ideate and just for stab, or using it just to create a mood board, those are fun things you can do. Or, it's interesting that if you can't find that stock and you're looking for that purple unicorn in a kitchen, you can go create that. So while it's limited creatively and it certainly doesn't look like everything that we design and has limitations, I think there's some exciting things you can do in that way as well, that we've been using as far
Yeah,
as ideation goes.
yeah, it's got a place. As far as I'm concerned, it's got a good place, and I think we're all just trying to figure out how to extend to other things that maybe aren't as obvious to us. I have to remind myself to use it in the first place, you know?
Really?
So,
Oh man, it's like my friend,
well,
something's on all the time. I have things pretty much thinking and going all the time for me, but yeah.
everybody's different. That's the
Mhm,
thing, is like,
for sure.
it's not always going to be intuitive for someone.
Yeah, and I think that is a big
Um,
challenge too, that people don't
yeah,
really understand it or know where it fits yet.
yeah. So, when it comes to this idea of repurposing, or as I like to talk about, the right way to do it is pre-purposing, planning ahead from the start to repurpose. How would you say that you as an organization, you guys are repurposing content, and, what's working and what's not on that front?
I think we can do a lot better job, to be honest, with that. I don't think we're maximizing it as far as taking written word and then translating it across to video. We're design snobs. Just like you were mentioning, how does it fit into what you do? Part of the challenge is when you're developing a workflow, it has to be a workflow that is quality to what you want to reflect, and that you're trusting how you're using AI. At what steps are you using it in a process, I think, is really important. I wouldn't say that we have that all figured out. What we're doing is trying to figure out what those workflows are that are acceptable to us, and where we have that quality control and checking, and also human element, because we're not at the point of just flying up entrusted AI content into websites, on the fly. Although I see it and it's remarkable, I think there's cases for it that make a lot of sense, like a real estate company that all of a sudden you're like flying up real time information that is AI generated about a small town or something. That I can kind of get, but also it's not life dependent. So if you're working with a hospital or certain industries, it's not like you're going to entrust AI without using one of those very specific
Yeah.
quality controlled tools as well.
You can see a lot of chaos unfolding without the right checks.
For sure. Checks and
um,
balances.
when it comes to putting stuff out there, how are you measuring your content performance, the dreaded ROI of the content marketing that you're doing?
Totally not my favorite wheelhouse nor my superpower there, but I'll answer what I can. There are people at Overit that are all about it. I tend to steer clear as much as possible, but we do create custom dashboards using Google Studio and all the integrations that we have, that is real time analytics that we can pull in. We create centralized dashboards and databases for clients, because ultimately you want to own all your data. You want to be able to mine all that data and gather that. So for us, we use pretty sophisticated central tools that are real time and integrate often with CRMs, POS systems, chat and text and phone calls and emails, as well as specialized campaigns and some of that kind of creepy marketing stuff that we have to coexist with at this point.
Yeah, I know that measurement is great and there's a lot of value, but I think that we get so tangled up and wanting to measure everything, we just kind of forget that the whole point of this is to just make noise out there, like be visible, like talk about what you're doing and what you can do. And then it's just inherently going to be valuable, even if you don't measure it. But that's a
Yeah.
Luddite perspective, I know.
Yeah, well, you know what? I get really, and I'm not excited by data, but I know a necessary evil, and I get it. You know what I've actually been excited about is personalization for the good I think it can do. And we're not there yet, but I think if businesses are smart with their data and forward thinking about who their customer really is, there is points of data that you can collect and really build a genuine connection to your user. And I think those things can be really interesting. But I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah. So, if we could end on one sort of parting thought of adding value for the viewer, what would be your one biggest piece of marketing advice for content marketers today?
Don't be afraid, one, because I think there are a lot of skeptics in the world specifically of content and AI. And I really get it. There are a lot of amazing writers that I know AI could not really replicate exactly what they're doing as best you train it. I see the specialness of what they're writing and creating, but there is a way to bring it into your workflow and you have to test. That means not testing once and being like, that tool, they don't know anything. It's like that tool read the internet. Okay. So you gotta
Yeah,
try to test and test again. So I would say don't be a skeptic and get out there and play and try to use it for your power of good, you know?
that's great. Yeah, I appreciate that perspective. I agree with you. That's exactly what we're doing right here with this podcast. Is we're just plowing forward, trying to add value and learn as we go. So, thanks
Awesome.
again for sharing your insights today. I'll be sending this along once it's wrapped. I'll do a wrap up later.
You can totally do that.
So, hey, thanks for doing this. We did it in 20 minutes. We went
Yeah.
from tech problems to recording an entire episode with only one cup of coffee.
Right.
There you go.
You're welcome. I know you're
Yeah,
still
thanks again for doing
recording.
this. Let's find out.